Welcome. My name is Stasia Bliss, and I want to talk about a really important topic today in our culture and in our world, this gender dysphoria. Okay, this is a pretty serious issue because the backing of this ideology, calling this an actual condition, is life-changing in every way. It will, if a person follows the prescribed medical treatment and puberty blockers and so forth, and even surgeries, this can devastate a person's life if this ever is, as often happens later in life, some new thought around the feelings of self. So I want to introduce an idea that isn't new, but it maybe is new in the West. Okay, I've spent a lot of time, many years, decades studying Eastern philosophy, Eastern tradition, yoga, meditative arts, Ayurveda, the Vedas, and so forth. And this idea that I'm going to share with you is prevalent in the various different spiritual traditions all over the globe, and that is that we all have a masculine and feminine nature within each one of us. So you could say, in the largest perspective, we are all androgynous. But we each came to this earth with a specific body. Okay? And that body is either of masculine man nature or a feminine female nature. Okay, but inside both of those structures, the physical body is a structure. It's telling you which one you're expressing as predominantly, okay? But within the energy body, which is the subtle bodies, okay? And even in, you can see it in the brain hemispheres, right and left brain, right? We have the more creative, right-brained thinking. Let's see if I've got that backwards. Anyway, one of the hemispheres is noted to be more, I think it's left brain, right brain. Anyway, it doesn't matter. What matters is that we already know that there's more like intuitive, creative faculties, predominantly, I think that's right brain, and then predominant, more logical, structured, mathematic sort of brain. But actually, even if you are dominant in one side or the other, you can still develop both sides of the brain. Okay? You can still develop both sides of the brain even if you are leaning toward one way, which generally could be a genetic tendency or just your environmental influences, right? If you're around a very math-minded, father or mother or people, you might tend to use that side of your brain more. And also, if you're more around artistic people or around, in a natural setting where you are taught to see things from a more artistic point of view, you might develop that side of the brain more. But point is, we all have both. So that is also true of our energy body. You can look at sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system. One calms you, and the other one assists you when you're moving faster or as the stress response, okay? They are meant to balance each other. In Indian tradition, you have along the spinal cord, following the vagus nerve, the Kundalini energy, which is life force energy. It's the energy of our life. And in order to activate it, you have to merge a positive and a negative polarity, which are also known as solar, the more masculine, dynamic, external, which would align with the brain of logical mind and strategy and mathematics and so forth, or Ida, which is the lunar force, the feminine force, the more intuitive, calming, receptive, creative. These two have to work together like a magnet, like the positive and negative poles in your body in order to fully awaken one to a higher level of consciousness, which in yoga or the East could be, say, called the awakening or self-realization or enlightenment, this sort of thing. But there are levels to this, so you're not just not enlightened and then enlightened. There are levels of awakening. There are realizations that one has that in the East, say, correlate with the opening of different chakra points, energy centers, which we won't go into too deeply in this video, but my point is that masculine and feminine nature is crucial for every human to become more whole and to evolve, not in the Darwinian sense, but to mature spiritually. Though I do believe we do evolve our faculties, and even the bodies and the hormonal system can shift to accommodate higher levels of consciousness. Okay, as we see in some people who have gone to breatharianism or to eating the sun. You know, you've read about these sorts of things. How could one person move off of ingesting food and move just to air? Like, that seems impossible. You would die. But there are people doing that, and a lot of more mystical things going on in the Himalayas of India than you might imagine. Anyway, so I find that in our Western culture, we have really defined, to our detriment, what a man and a woman's jobs are and what masculine and feminine means, okay? So that a man is meant to be very masculine and very, you know, like take control and have the structure and the strategy and have a low voice and be a warrior. That is the masculine nature. And of course, we have a spectrum of types of men that fall into that. But on the other end, we have the feminine, sensual, soft, you know, beauty, receptivity of femininity, okay, that some females exemplify on the high end of the spectrum. So you can think of femininity and masculinity as two opposing poles, two sides of the same coin, okay? So we all have elements of both, even though Western culture doesn't like to see feminine men, or so we say you're not a man if you're more feminine, or if you're feminine, they say, oh, then you must be a homosexual, or oh, maybe you're trans, you know. And so what I'm suggesting is that we haven't attuned ourselves to know that us, you know, we all have both. So a very masculine man, when attuned to his femininity, will be intuitive, will be creative, will still be masculine, strong, but have some creative undertones, or be psychic, you know, like he's not expressing femininity as softness and sensuality or a high voice or anything. That's not the only things that femininity are. Femininity is access to that receptive lunar force, that creative, intuitive, softer polarity of the oneness. So then if a woman, and I mean woman like you were born with woman parts, reproductive organs, female reproductive organs, and we have to say that these days, which is funny, but if you are a female who has female organs and you're more in tune with your masculine nature, so maybe you are assertive or you are aggressive, or maybe your body is more like strong and tough and warrior-like, okay, but you still will have feminine qualities about you too. And that may, because of the way things are balanced, maybe you don't like those types of feminine. So you are identifying more with the masculine. So then we say, oh, you think you're a man, or you want to be a man because you're more like a man. But what you're more like is just the far side of the masculine spectrum. But your feminine qualities could be, maybe you're shy about it, maybe you're big, or maybe you are also deep, intuitive, psychic like that strong man. Those two things seem to go together. If you have brawn, you also kind of know stuff. Like, you don't look like you're the kind of person that would, but you do. Like, your feminine nature, it takes you deep. And so you're reflective, or you're artistic, or you're musical. Okay? All of these things. You might enjoy quieter nature. This is also in the feminine qualities. Okay? A man can like nature. A man can be creative. In fact, lots of men are amazing musicians who come in all shapes and sizes, and that feminine quality is big with them. In Indian philosophy, they call it that Saraswati. That is the energy of creativity, of music, of dance. And if a man has access to Saraswati, in the West, they think they're gay. Now, I can't judge what anyone's stuff is behind the scene. What I'm merely doing is offering another perspective of what could be going on here. You know, because I've had clients that have come to me and have felt like, I don't know if I'm masculine enough man. Like, according to what reality tells me, I don't feel like a masculine man. Therefore, question mark, I've never thought this, but am I gay? Should I start to think about that? That's the questions that I get. And I think, well, that's funny. You're just tuning into your feminine nature at this time. And sometimes we are doing this in flux. We tune into our masculine, we tune into our feminine, because that's literally the pathway Kundalini is taking. The life force is weaving. And sometimes it's out and sometimes it's in. It's together, it's far away. It's breathing. You know, this life force is breathing in us, open and close. It's a pulsation. And so when we are tuning into one of those natures, because our being wants to be balanced. So we're doing like this, you know, we're like, I need to do scheduling, okay? And, you know, also the masculine feminine is looked at as masculine is very good at holding space. And feminine is very good at this chaotic dance of creation. Okay, these are personifications of masculine, feminine. In Sanskrit, they would say the masculine Shiva and the feminine Shakti. Shakti's energy, life force. But in each of us, we have Shiva and Shakti. We have the masculine Pingala, solar life force, that is awakening us to the bigger picture, the structure, the space that we hold, that we take up. That is actually organization, and related a lot in astrology to the sign of Saturn, and also the sun, this masculine, like holding space, being the organization, being the schedule, being the framework of reality, wherein reality can happen. So that is considered feminine, like where reality happens in the in-between, in the music, in the paint, on the paintbrush, and in the song. But I'm speaking now to the parents of children, or maybe the children or teenagers who are feeling uncertain. I want to ask you to please not let society trick you into thinking that exploring your masculinity and femininity within somehow makes your body wrong. You're born perfect and right. So the work I do with people, and the work I think that is all of our work, is to get good with what we actually are, who we are, and not try to manipulate that, because the truth is you cannot really manipulate the truth of who you are. Your form is just a manifestation of who you are. So our work on planet Earth is to learn to love ourselves, and not in like an ego-driven way, but just acceptance. This is what every spiritual path teaches, really. To know thyself and to accept and love thyself like you would want to do to others. But it all does start here. We cannot treat each other kindly or have a beautiful world, really, have a world that's progressing and growing up and maturing, if we are constantly looking for what is wrong and bad, we are blaming and we are trying to manipulate these very divine forms that we incarnated into. And I don't believe some other being, poof, made me. I believe in the core of each of us, we are all a part of that creation. We helped make it happen. Our consciousness is brilliance. It is wisdom. It is in alignment with the oneness, the love. And so with some kind of brilliance, you birthed how you are. Now figure out why that's brilliant. Figure out why that's brilliant. Because it is exactly the way you're born. And the tricky part is weeding out what society is telling us and what is actually the core truth. So I hold space with you right now. That's my masculine energy showing up to hold space with you right now, to know love for yourself. I love you. There's not a single being on earth that isn't worthy of love. There's just a lot of tangle going on in our minds. It's time to simplify it, break it down, bring it back to easy terms. You are beautiful and made not just in the image of God. You are the expression of God, of the universe, of life itself, expressing itself. That's big energy. And this world has been afraid of that truth, that authenticity, because then all of the lies and the structures fall. All the fakers go down when you're being real. And those fake structures, though, they are just mirrors of when we're pretending that we're something we're not. And when you're being you, it feels expansive. It feels like a yes, deeply, deeply, deeply. So please honor yourself and your body. That's all I have.